Okay, great. So welcome back. So now I'd like to add some parameters to our mesh model. So we have our name, we have a row and column, we have color names and points, which I believe should be combined. So I'm actually going to just get rid of these for now, and this is obviously going to cause some issues immediately. So let's delete this and delete this, and of course delete the parameters here. So we're going to have really a chain reaction of issues, but it's really better to take care of this now than to procrastinate and have to refactor later. Okay, great. So now we have our name, our row, our column, and now I want to have a background color. And this will be of type string, not of type color. In general, it's problematic to store colors in SwiftData at the moment. Now, I would like us to decide whether the colors are smooth or not. So we'll have a Boolean value. And Booleans are quite easy to store, so I'm going to have a value color space is device, also of type Boolean. Okay, great. And we're also going to need, our colors and points, okay? So I am going to define a color point pair. Let's go up here, add @model, class color point pair. And it is, a kind of important decision, choosing your data types. So let's see, var color name of type string, var x of type float, var y of type float. Now, when we will append color points to an array which will exist in mesh model, the order might not be preserved. We don't know what order it's going to be stored. So I am actually going to keep track of the order of a given point by adding a parameter called sortIndex. When I was creating this app, I really ran into some issues that I didn't expect beforehand. When I added color point pairs to the mesh model, the order would randomly permute because we don't know what is the order. The order can change. So that's why we need the sortIndex. Now we do need an initializer. So we could go with this initializer. I would like to have another initializer. So we could say, let's even duplicate this just to make life easier. But instead of this, let's have a point, say pt, of type simd2 float. It could be useful to have this together with a sortIndex. And then we'll have point.x, point.y. Okay, and we can jump back to the mesh model. And now let's add our relationship. So private var, I want this to be private. I don't want this to be accessed because I do want to keep track of the order. I'll let the user access a sorted version of this because this is unsorted in general. So private var color point pairs. Okay, wonderful. And we're going to need to add this to our initializer. So we have quite a lot of things to add to our initializer. I think what I'll do is I'll just delete our initializer. And now let's just add this. And we get some default initializer. Okay, so we have our name, we have all our data. For smooth colors, well, first of all, let's press select init and press Control M. I want a default value for smooth colors to be true. And color space is device. Let's set that to true. Okay, great. Now we could make the relation a little bit more explicit. So let's add relationship. And I want the delete rule And I also want the inverse. So for the delete rule, I want cascade for inverse ColorPointPair dot mesh model. However, there is no mesh model, so we will need to add that to ColorPointPair. So this will be the reference back to the mesh model. So let's jump to ColorPointPair, and this will be related to our mesh model. This will make the connection var mesh model of type mesh model optional. Okay, so I'm explicitly stating the connection. We don't really need to explicitly state it because the compiler can figure this out. But I think it's sometimes nice to have the explicit relationship between the two. Great, great. So before we leave, we still have some work to do on our model. We said the color point pairs are unsorted and private, so we can't really access them, and I do want to be able to access something. So I'm going to do the following. Let's say we have var sorted color point pairs, and this will be an array of color point pair, and let's set up a getter and a setter. So for the getter, we want to sort color point pairs. So dot sorted. So we can actually get rid of most of this code over here and simply use $0 is less than $1, where we're using the sort index to sort. Okay, and I could put this on one line. I don't think it has to be multiple lines. Okay, wonderful. And the setter is quite straightforward. Color point pairs equals to new value. Okay, and in addition, I don't like the description. I don't like forcing the word view at the end of the mesh. Initially, I thought this would be nice, but let's let the user decide if they want to append something. So let's get rid of this, and I'll just say the default is my mesh if name is non-empty, which probably will never happen. But if name is empty, then it'll be called my mesh, otherwise the name that we chose to use. Okay, great. So let's take a break, and in the next lecture we'll add some useful computed properties to our mesh model. So have an amazing day, and see you next time.